house.
Yeah, so
And we just didn't really have a great place to put it, so it ended up being our dinette table.
yeah,
So do you have an antenna switcher that?
We do, so right here.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's an antenna switcher, it's got a dummy load on it. There's the power supply. There's extra power cables because right now in this stack, there's actually 2 radios. So there's the 991, and then there's also my ICOM 7100 that's going to be in the truck. Now that the 991 finally came off back order and showed up.
And then above that, then there's below there's the tuner. The what do we got from the sound?
Yeah, LVG.
Yeah, and then above that there's a Heil parametric audio, just receiving audio quality.
And then that speaker hooks right into that.
What's that
And then
speaker?
this is the other tuner.
What is that?
It's a Heil speaker that came with the
Yeah.
the parametric audio.
And the fuzzy.
Yes, the fuzzy tuner on the floor who decided to be part of the picture
Yeah.
this morning.
It's our recently adopted dog, and we named it.
Proving that we really are sucked fully in.
Yeah.
Tricia, is that where you run the net from?
It sure is.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. That's the table I'll be
Good
sitting
job.
at. If I'm running net, then Tim will give me that whole table because as you see, it's not a very big table. So Tim will be in the kitchen on the counter and I'll get the whole table. So I've got all my stuff spread out.
Good.
Vast improvement over running the net in the truck.
Okay. Bob.
Okay, most of you guys know Joyce and I have been doing summits on the air a lot. And so go out on top of some summit, get your radio gear out and see who you can talk to. We've been doing that 100% above 50 megahertz, so VHF and up. A lot of the guys like to go and do HF, and that's fine. It's kind of like cheating, bouncing the signal off the ionosphere, but I'm okay with that. but my thing's always been VHF, so that's kind of where we started. So about a year or so ago, I said, well, what's next? And because most of that was on 2 meters, some 70 centimeters. And I noticed a bunch of other guys in different parts of the country were getting into 1.2 gigahertz for SOTA. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. And in the SOTA rules, they actually consider that a microwave band. So they start to have different awards and stuff for the actual distance that you contact. And so I said, okay, how am I going to get on 1.2 gigahertz? So the first thing I did was looked around for radios that'll go to 1.2. Pretty hard to find, not a lot of them. Here's the cheapest one. It's an Alinco HT. It does 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and 23 centimeters is 1.2 gigahertz. It only does a watt on 1.2, and it's FM only, of course. But that's what a lot of the SOTA guys use, is this little HT. It's only $240. So to get on that high a band for that price is pretty good. So then you go, okay, what am I going to use for an antenna? Actually, the rubber duck is not too bad because that's a half wave on 23 centimeters.
Hey, Bob, what's the model number?
You want me to read that for you, Bob?
They keep making the print smaller on this video. It's a DJ Golf 7, DJ G7, Alinco. So then I said, okay, what can I do about an antenna? And I guess the first thing I did was I bought this thing. This is a Comet. 16 element Yagi. And so, obviously the dimensions get pretty small, right? So here's your actual half wave on 23 centimeters. And you can get a lot of gain in a small package. So that's one of the fun things about the higher frequencies. I think the gain spec on this is like 16 dBi. And so I just hook that to the HT and go out on summits and try and talk to people. This thing's a little bit long. I usually hang it on my backpack
Sword.
and if there's trees and stuff, I'm banging into it all the time. So then, but it's really nice, really well-made antenna from Comet. So then I said, well, maybe something smaller. And this is not very well made. It's a piece of economy Chinese technology. The first one arrived had the elements falling off of it. So I asked for a second one and they sent me a replacement. Let's see, I think the spec on this was like 12 dBi gain, and but obviously a lot smaller, right? And this one you can pretty much stick in a pack, or it doesn't. If it hangs on the pack, it's not as bad.
How's the performance compare?
I don't have a really good comparison between the two. I know this thing has more gain. This one does pretty respectable though. So I think it really works. And then I came across this little antenna made by WA5VJB. If you ever want to poke around VHF, UHF antenna sometime, just Google WA5VJB, and he's got a bunch of things out there. One of the things he's got is this is made out of a printed circuit board, and you probably can't see it, but it's basically a little Yagi. It's got the driven element is printed on the board here, and then there's a director that's printed there, and I guess it's got a reflector in the back too. And so this thing just, it's got an SMA connector, and I hook it onto the HT and point it around like that, and it has gain. It's if I don't point it in the right direction, I don't work the other station. So it has surprisingly good directivity. And so we've been playing around with that, and then one day I was like, way the heck, up in the mountains, and I was trying to work somebody out in Black Forest. And he says, well, I've got like 100 watts of power on 1.2 gig. I will point that at Pikes Peak and we'll see how we did. And we just barely made a contact with this thing. And I said, I need more power. And so, then I started looking around what my options were. And, what I got interested in was, well, if I could find a transceiver like this is a single band transceiver. If you folks haven't been around for a while, they used to make a lot of these, like for every single band, and people would like stack them up in their car. If they wanted to work 4 bands, they'd have 4 radios like this piled up. And this one is for 1.2 gig, and nobody makes anything like this anymore. This one happens to be a Kenwood. And it runs 10 watts, still FM only, but I bought that off of eBay, and so that just helped a bunch. Now it's a little bit, when you're doing summits on the air, you want to keep it small, right? But this thing is quite a bit heavier, and then it does need a battery. So usually I'm going to have some kind of lithium LiFePO kind of battery I take along and hook it up. But this all kind of gets to be more and more equipment. But it will put out 10 watts, and that's
You've got Joyce to help you carry it.
Yeah, it turns
goats.
Yeah, I really need some goats. So I guess I've used that once or twice. We're just starting to get used to that. And then the question is, well, who do you work? There's not a lot of people on 1.2 gig. I pretty much have to make a schedule with somebody. I don't know if you guys know Steve, KL7IWK. He's come to this meeting a number of times. I haven't seen him. Well, we haven't been meeting in person, right? And he's got some pretty serious. He was the guy out in Black Forest with 100 watts with, I forget what antenna he had. I think it was more elements than this. So think about 100 watts and lots of gain. That's a pretty serious signal. And then he's telling me how he wants to improve his station further. So we'll be playing around in the mountains, see what we can do with summits on the air. Oh, last comment is, FM is notoriously bad for weak signal. So the other angle to go is use single sideband and CW. I might do that. That's another set of equipment. And the problem is the SOTA guys are going to tend to have FM. So if I want to do peak to peak kind of stuff, I'm going to end up using FM anyway. So do I really want to invest in SSB? Yeah, we probably need to buy some. Yeah. Yeah.
So what kind of distance have you gotten out of that?
See, my best is 120 kilometers. That was, and that was pretty easy. I'm sure I can do better. That was Steve in Black Forest, and where were we? We were on. No, it wasn't. We did Wilkerson Pass one time as a warm up, and then we went someplace over close to like Buena Vista, on one of those mountaintops. Can't remember which mountain it was, and it wasn't really a clean. That's pretty interesting. It wasn't a clean path. If you look if you get out the topo map, you've got Wilkerson Pass and those mountains that go through there, and then you got the Front Range and Pikes Peak. And what seemed to work was he had his antenna pointed at Pikes Peak, and I had my antenna. I went off in the horizon and pointed at Pikes Peak, and that was where the strongest signal was. So it worked pretty well. And that's kind of a typical trick the VHF, UHF guys do. Like in Colorado Springs, a lot of times they'll take their Yagis and point them at Pikes Peak and just blast the signal off of the big mountain and hope it gets to wherever it needs to go. And it's pretty good technique, actually.
Just if you do a Google search on 1.2 gigahertz ham radio,
yeah,
the third Google entry is Bob.
I'm not sure. I'm sure that's good.
I don't know what that means, but
any other questions?
What's your longest distance contact simplex on VHF?
Well, there's two categories. For summits on the air, the longest is 325 miles, I think. That was on 2 meter FM, 146.52. The longest for any time in my life was, I don't know the distance. It was up near Hartselle at the cabin. We got an E-skip opening into Connecticut. And it's actually a pretty rare occurrence to actually hit Connecticut from Colorado. But I made a 2 meter contact on single sideband 2 years ago, actually about this time of year, July. So you never know. You never know on VHF. That's cheating, though. It's bouncing off the answer.
Anybody else? I've got something. I'll come over there. All right. And I'm going to read off their website because my memory's terrible. So what I got, for those of you that don't know me, I have been saying I was going to learn CW for forever. And I finally took a class from CW Academy last fall when I had some time, and I made some pretty good progress. But I really needed a way of practicing while I travel. So what I did is I bought this little thing. And I don't know if you've all seen this. This is called a Morse-Reno 32. I'll get a close-up shot there. This is a kit that I think it's out of Germany. And it is a pretty crazy little kit. So this thing is both so what you get in the kit is pretty much everything here. You get the acrylic case, the board, all the little components are pre-populated. You really don't have to do much in the way of major soldering. Some of the components like this.
Didn't you have to do the DIN rails?
Yes, the DIN rails, the headphone jacks, that kind of thing. So it's pretty easy. It went together in about 3 hours, I think. And I'm so with the soldering. But what this thing does is it's kind of, it's got a lot of different features in it. So it has, so the main thing is for code practice. So it's got a little screen on here. You can you can select what you want to do. It'll give you things like, if there's like a challenge mode where it will give you the sounds, you repeat them back into your keyer, and it'll tell you whether you got them right or wrong. So you can listen, you can practice. It's also, you can use it as a transceiver. So you can actually use this to transmit. Some of the cool features of this that are, I don't think I've ever seen in anything else, is one, it's got LoRa technology in it. So if you have 2 of these, you can use these to communicate with one another over short distances. It's got Wi-Fi built in, so you can actually connect this to the internet. And if someone else on the internet on the other side somewhere has the same device, can go back and forth. It is not open source. This gentleman put it together. He provides the code, but he provides regular firmware updates. There's a whole ecosystem with this. It's I think it's on a groups.io site. So very active group that both talks about how they use the thing as well as any firmware updates or features that they want to see or things of that nature.
Would you say the name again?
It's Morserino, MORSEINO 32. The kit runs about $100, I think. And you really don't need anything else. I didn't bring them, but it's got 2 little capacitive touch panels and touch keys. So you can, just by touching it, you can send it the dits and das, and it's pretty cool little technology. It's just print it on a circuit board, and you can just touch it and it'll do its thing. I'll turn it on. It's kind of annoying if I let it go. So, okay. But it'll come up with a little screen there. You basically select the mode, click Echo Trainer, and you can do like English words, CW abbreviations, random. You can play files from it, mixed, and then call signs. So do that. So what it will start doing. Won't work. See, work now. So that's about the starter. And then you're supposed to use the key to type that back in. And it'll give you an error message if you got it right or wrong. So it's a great tool. I got it mainly to practice while I'm traveling, much to my wife's chagrin. So I do use the headphone jack portion of that. But it's a great little piece of technology. If you are trying to if you're new to CW and you need another way of practicing where you can get the direct feedback, great little tool. Like I said, easy to build. You can plug it in with an external keyer. So, and it's got all the different types of keys that you might want to use. So highly recommend it. So I'll pass it around if folks want to take a look at it. Thanks, Robert.
I've got one of those. It's amazing. To update them, you use that as your network hub, and you go in, and it's pretty nice. And that screen, although it's small, is crystal clear and easy to read. It's really surprising.
Except for Bob.
And when you use it with your computer, which you can do, there's a USB cable that you can connect to your computer. The software on the computer is much better than just the software on the unit itself. The software on the unit itself is run through an Arduino compatible IDE interface. And so it does a lot of things, but it's incredibly frustrating. You set a speed and it only gives you a certain amount of time to answer. And if you're just a millisecond late, bam, you get hit with, you got it wrong. So, but anyway, it's a nice tool. And like you said, you can use any kind of key you want with it, including a straight key. The Long Island CW Club has an active group where they do QSOs over the internet using that as the device. Now, why they don't just get on the air is beyond me.
But they have guaranteed propagation to a specific person. Ben, you want to go next?
Yeah. Yeah, so my name's Ben, K0EJ. And where do you want me to stand, Stu?
Anywhere up here is fine.
All right. So what I have brought is something much more low tech than everything else you see tonight, but it solves an important problem that we have, which is oftentimes we want to get our antenna up in a tree or something. Well, there's all kinds of crazy devices everybody's come up with, all kinds of everything from using potato guns to bows and arrows, baseballs with screw eyes in them, all sorts of different things. And one of the things that somebody suggested to me on the internet, on a forum I'm a member of, is an arborist throw bag. Because arborists spend a lot of time going up and down trees, and they need something to set their lines in the tree so that they can safely climb, go up and down the tree. And they have come up with some pretty easy to use systems that do that. And so I decided, after watching a couple of YouTube videos, which is what I recommend you do, to kind of figure out how it works, is I just made my own. You could make one with some sinkers. I had some pistol bullets laying around, so I used those, and I sewed them into a little bag that I attached to a little key lanyard I had laying around. So all stuff I had in my house, a $5 roll of line from Home Depot. And the other very important thing is you need a box or something to put the line into. You want to pull the line completely out, and then you want to lay it into the box without the spool in here, but you want to lay it into the box. That way it will not tangle and it will pay out correctly when you throw it. But what is shocking to me is how much height you can get with this thing. And you don't have to do any weird stuff like swinging it in a circle around your head or things like that are kind of scary and dangerous. The best technique I have found, and there's a couple different techniques. Some people like to swing the bag by their side. The most important thing is the pendulum. You do not want it to be like going so high that it's like falling down like that. You just want it to be going back and forth. And I personally have found the most accurate throws come from, and I might have done that incorrectly, used to having my box on the ground there. Is you get a bite of the line right there. But anyway, you get, I'm doing something wrong here, but this is not.
You got a tangle there.
Yeah, it's not going well at the moment here, but what I will say is amazing is it's described it to someone I know as it's like sorcery almost, is just how high the thing goes when you get it to work correctly. There we go. This is what I want. So you want to get the line through there. And then I like to do this where I do it between my legs like this. Somebody online, a Canadian arborist, calls it the granny throw. And I do that. And you need to look way up into the tree where you want it to go. And when you let that thing go at the right point, it will go 60, 70, 80 feet in the air with almost no effort. It's absolutely shocking. It's physics at work. So I highly recommend this as a way to set lines, and it's very low profile. It's not gonna scare neighbors and things like that. This I made for probably $3 or $4 of materials. A real arborist throw bag you can get on Amazon for about 20 bucks or so, and that's probably better than this thing. And if you're a soda person, you're concerned about weight carrying on hiking, I'm guessing you could probably design and make one of these that has a little pouch you zip up, and you could probably fill it with some stones or whatever you picked up, there on the summit to get it up into a tree. So that's all I got, but this worked really well for setting antenna lines, and especially when you live in a congested urban area. I'm very happy with it for what I paid for it.
Nice.
Any questions?
Chip, did you have something?
Yeah. A number of you saw my camper out in the parking lot. I've had to move it, but that is one of my 3 Radio Shacks. So if anybody'd like to take a look at it, I had to move it over across the street, but let me know when you get on with the meeting, and you're welcome to. I have an old IC 7100 or 7000 setup in it, which is still one of my favorite radios, and my 7300 and a number of antennas on top of it. So if anybody'd like to take a look at it, just let me know after the meeting.
Okay. So I guess I'll tell you what I've been doing at my shack. So first of all, over the last year, of course, we've been doing a little more Morse code, a lot of CW. So I bought myself a Bengali key. You need to check those out. They are really nice. I put up a new 160 meter in-fed half wave. And as Bob would say, it's resonant on 80, 60, and 40. And on those bands, it's an in-fed something or other. But so that works. I also built a unique antenna that I put up, and it works really well. Its advantage is it's really low takeoff angle. It doesn't have much gain, but it does have some. It's called a half square for 40 meters. And so I originally fed it corner fed, and it's now in fed, but the structure of the antenna is it's a quarter wave on 40 meters vertical, a half wave on 40 meters horizontal, and then a quarter wave on 40 meters vertical. So it's a full wavelength long. You feed it in one of the corners, and it's supposed to work better, but I couldn't get my feed line perpendicular to the radiator, and so it wasn't working well. So I switched to an in-fed configuration with a 49-to-1 balance. And it works well, and you get incredibly low takeoff. So I did that, and then I got a new rig, which is the Yaesu FTDX 10. And the nice part there is you get a nice big, you just plug in your display and you get to see everything. So that's kind of what I've been doing at my shack. Oh yeah, I also have one thing that Bob might do. I've been working on a project for a couple of years now that involves building a transceiver. And I started trying to do it with the little islands that you glue onto a copper back, and that didn't work too well. And so I modified it to use these copper rails. And the rails are very close together, but they're not connected. And you can solder and you can do all kinds of great stuff with it. And so Lauren has been helping me with that. And I built, we started with the receiver audio chain first. So it was the power amp on the audio side plus a preamp on the audio side. And then I built the local oscillator and a ring diode mixer. And for the local oscillator, I used an Arduino that I programmed to run on two bands, on 40 and on 80. And you flip a switch and you drop one pin down to 0, and it switches which band it works. And then you use a rotary encoder, which looks kind of like a volume pot, but it clicks every time you turn, and it's programmed to go up and down, and you can set the local oscillator frequency to be exactly where you want it. Well, the radio I'm building is a direct conversion, or it's a direct conversion receiver essentially, but it's a double sideband carrier suppressed radio. And so in order to get to make it work, you have to put a local oscillator in at the frequency so that you take your antenna and you bring the RF in through a bandpass filter, and then you run the bandpass filter for the band that you want, and then you mix it with your local oscillator against your ring diode mixer against your local oscillator. And I have here a picture of my local oscillator actually generating what's close to a square wave. There's a little bit of an overring and a little bit of an overshoot, a little ring, I think they call it. But it's at exactly the right frequency. I don't have an exploded version of this, but that's set at 7.002, I think, and it came out perfect. So we're still working on that project. And the last project I worked on was something that Bob inspired me to do, which is to use an Epic power gate to provide emergency power to my shack. Epic and Powergate and all those guys, the Powergate supplies are really good. It's not quite working the way I wanted it to work. I think I'm going to have to build some kind of an Arduino controlled switch to make it work, because what it's designed to do is whenever your power goes out, it automatically switches over to your battery. Well, that's fine if you want to run your power supply 24/7, but if you don't, then if you have anything on, it drains the battery. And my tuner, which is an Elecraft high power tuner, it doesn't have a power supply. It runs whenever your power supply is on. So right now I have a manual where I just unplug my power pole, plug it in. So that's how it works. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. Anybody have anything else?
Well, yeah, to defend myself. Okay. I forget, I've lost the last year because of the pandemic. And just before we shut down for the pandemic, I got my extra. And shortly after that, I got my IC 7300. And thanks to NC0JW, aka Johnny Walker, he's been a great help. I'm a history major. All right. I worked in personnel plans and programs when I was in the Air Force. Then I went to work for an electronics firm called AirInc, and that's how I got my technician license, because aeronautical radio, I had to learn something. But with that Powergate, I'm the plug and play kind of guy. All right. So Jim, NC0JW Jim, who's not here to defend himself,
Isn't that convenient?
and he's my best buddy, but so it was like, Bob, just do it. Yeah, that sounds good. What do you want to do? All right, yeah, that'll work. Do it. So I got a Chameleon Antenna, 100-watt end-fed, from my IC 7300. The Chameleon, I paid the extra money, got the 130-foot black 14-gauge wire, which is, you can't see it. I know where it's at, and I can't see it in my tree. But everybody asks me, well, what kind of antenna do you have? I go, well, it's just a end-fed. Well, how big is it? Well, 130 feet. What is it? Well, it goes up on my deck about 12 feet, and it goes up over a branch at about 20 feet. Then it comes back down over a branch at about 12 feet. And then we take a turn over here, and it goes back up that tree and then back down to a post. And Jim convinced me to get the Powergate and get the 12-volt battery with the 20% off at Harbor Freight, which I did. I have a 30-year-old solar panel that I used to use on my battery when I went camping. I plugged that in to put on Anderson power poles, plugged that into the Powergate, plugged in my supply. 90% of the time, I run off of that battery. And and just on last field day, thanks to TRD, I found I'm supposed to have this little monitor that tells me when my battery's going down, instead of a little blinky idiot light for me that says you're going down less than 12 volts. So I plugged that in, but it works. So for all you people out there who are, everything's going over your head, don't worry about it. I have contacted on my log all 50 states since June of last year on single sideband phone voice, either 20 or 40. 46 of them have confirmed so far on Logbook of the World. I just finished up the 13. I did all 13 colonies. This 2 weeks ago was another big contest. So I now have Asia, thanks to Asia, Russia, Europe, which is Russia, Slovenia, Sweden, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Great Britain, France, Northern Africa, Sudan, and regularly into South Africa with Bill. He's ZS6CCY. He's on every night on 40 meters at about 7.150 to 158. And usually Jim is the first guy in. You know, and then I'm official with Bill as on the 100 watt and wire club. And I've gotten South America consistently, Canada, Hawaii, New Zealand, and like I said, I just got Asia, Russia this last weekend. So I'm waiting for confirmation. So I gave up on work all states because not everybody confirms on QRZ or Logbook of the World.
Send him an email.
So my attorney friend tells me I got to harass him. So yeah. So even an idiot history major, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Just have fun.
Is it Val?
For those who wonder, what can I do on my lot or whatever I have? On your little description up there, I have a inverted V antenna that I work South America, Japan, Hawaii, Germany, pretty much anywhere I want to go. And the apex of the inverted V is 12 feet up in a tree, and the ends are 2 feet off the ground. Works great. So, no matter what you do, get on the air.
Yeah. I mean, every time I do it, and I go tell my wife, pull up QRZ on a laptop. So look at this. Can you believe this? On a 14-gauge wire out there that the HOA can't tell I got 130 foot antenna. And it's in Chip's words. Anybody complains about it, it's just temporary. I just have it up for the weekend. It's coming down on.
All right, well, I guess with that, we will adjourn the July meeting, August the 16th, I believe. Put in your calendar, September 25th, 2 to 5 for the picnic. We will have a September meeting before that, I think, so can't remember what we want. Anything else? All right, be safe out there.